Good morning.
Oh, I love being here. I really do. Thank you. Thank you. Life is energy. And what we're talking about today is the energy of enthusiasm. And I want to begin by saying maybe we don't even need this talk today because this has been an enthusiastic morning. I mean, without a doubt, the energy and the love and the vitality here is palpable. Makes my job really easy. I just get to step up here and feel this love energy that you are. And so today what we're talking about is the energy of enthusiasm. And what are we talking about when we're talking about enthusiasm? I'm going to bookmark that for a moment. Because I think it's important for me to talk a little bit about how we activate a deeper vision for our lives before we talk about the enthusiasm. Because I have been enthusiastic many times in my life about a lot of things that have taken me down a road and landed me in places that I wasn't so happy about arriving at. Right? Because I was really enthusiastic early in my life about getting myself into a lot of trouble. So enthusiasm is the activating power that will manifest, if you will, that which we're holding internally. And I know in Unity we talk a lot about thoughts. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Here's the thing though. Thoughts are incredibly powerful and creative, and yet there is something that is deeper than thought that actually is what creates what we call our lives. I'm going to say it a little different way, and I'm going to share it from my personal experience. Early in my spiritual journey, I grabbed on to the principle that thoughts held in mind create after their kind, but what I was doing was pretending. I decided what I wanted to get out of life, and I thought if I just hold those thoughts in mind long enough, eventually that would manifest. And here's the great news. It actually worked. The issue in my own journey was that I hadn't taken the time to really cultivate a relationship with that deeper self. And so what was happening in the external realm is I was creating all kinds of things, if you will, that weren't necessarily connected with that deeper vision. In other words, I was living for my ego. And it's kind of fun, actually. I mean, it's really kind of an interesting experiment, and I know that Greg talked a little bit about the political climate. There's something about the ego that is incredibly seductive. Watch any news program, watch any reality TV program, and we recognize that there's something that is really captivating about that kind of drama. And then at some point, we come to a place where some of that, or all of that, quits working in our lives. And we tap into something much deeper, which really is that power of love. Now, when we hear the word love, we can hear it through all different lenses, if you will, right? We can hear that through our ego. I love you because. Or I love you if. And we could even say, I don't love you if. Now, these messages can be really subtle and sometimes not so subtle in our early life. This is where we form the ideas of what we call reality. And love that is incredibly conditional is certainly what a lot of us, consciously or unconsciously, are taught. If you do this, I will love you. So then therefore the message is, if I don't do that, then what happens? I don't deserve love. So then we start creating these core beliefs about ourselves that are separate from this essential self, this deeper reality that we can call God or love or source or light. And when we cultivate a relationship with that deeper self, and we create a space and honor that space for that to come forward in our lives, then we can use enthusiasm as the activating power that brings our life into manifestation. And so do you hear how that's different than thoughts held in mind create after their kind? Now, it doesn't mean that because they can be together, right? We can have those thoughts. When I'm pretending, though, when I'm not looking at those parts of myself that might prevent me from experiencing that deeper self, I'm going to create out of that. I'm going to be a little clearer about this. If I have beliefs about myself and the world, I will literally see that in the world. So if I believe in some way that the world is unsafe, what will I experience in my reality? Unsafety, danger, fear. So part of the spiritual journey, it's an interesting thing, right? It feels like there's these two different aspects to what we call awakening or our journey to enlightenment. And that is cultivating a relationship with that essential self. And what are the ideas and beliefs that are limited that prevent me from knowing that? Absolutely. What needs to be dismantled? So that's why there's a lot of spiritual communities that focus only on the love and the light. It's nice, right? It's a nice experience to only focus on the love and light. And in my own journey, the more I focused on this love and light, the more I had an opportunity to see those beliefs and those ideas that have kept me playing small. Right? Playing small. A limited idea about myself and the world. So my invitation for each of us in this moment is to recognize that we have these different levels of spiritual understanding, and at any moment we can decide where we want to put our focus or put our energy. See, because we can't pretend to be something that we're not for very long. You know when you're in the presence of someone and you don't know exactly what it is, but there's a felt sense there? There's something about being in the presence of this person. You know, Maya Angelou said it so perfectly. People will forget what you say, but they won't forget the way you made them feel. So that really is, that's really it. The more I'm able and willing to clear away the beliefs and the ideas that keep that shell around this light, the more this light naturally comes through. In other words, the spiritual journey isn't a destination of getting somewhere. It's a recognition that we're already there. We are already that which we seek. And yet most of us, myself included, have spent years, maybe decades, maybe lifetimes, trying to get it outside of ourselves. Right? So when we talk about love, when we are living in that conditional love, then we're always seeking, right? We're always looking for someone to bring us that love. Maybe that's why we come to community. We come to a spiritual community because we feel that somehow. There's some felt sense of being in this room in particular where we can feel that. But it's so often easy to mistake it must be about this group of people. That it's really that it's touching this deeper truth within myself. And there's a recognition of this deeper love. So as Gregory said when he was doing his reading, his talk, I don't know what you call that, what do you call it? His thing. When he was doing his thing. I love that he was talking about the womb. Now, I'll tell you something that's really fascinating though, because, of course I speak. And then afterward, people will come up and they will say, I really love when you said, and I'm thinking, wow, I never said that. And it's true, right? Because we hear through our own lens. So I have actually no idea if Gregory said this, but I'll tell you what I heard. And that is some version of no one and nothing can harm me. It's not what people say, it's that it activated some wound within me that is still there. And the same is true for love. No one can actually bring me love. It's that in the presence of love, I feel my own love. And so as we unlearn those ideas and those limitations about ourselves and about the world, we naturally come into this way of being that is love. In my book, Conscious Being, which thank you so much for having it be your book of the month. I'm so honored and so grateful for that. I talk a little bit about the 4 levels of conscious awareness. And the interesting thing about collective consciousness is, I of course thought this came from me, which it did, and then I recognized that there are a few other people who have written about something very similar. That's how we pick things up in the energy field. But one of the things I talk about in the book, or I write about, is how we view what we might call God through our levels of conscious awareness. So God as force is this first level, right? It's a God to be afraid of. I remember being in church, very little, and hearing exactly what you read, that these first 2 things that are most important is love, and then in the next breath it was fear of God. I'm like, I don't get it, right? I don't understand. I'm supposed to be afraid of God, and yet God is love. So anyway, I'll just leave that there. God as force, right? That was the early idea of God. Praying to God for sunshine, praying to God for good crops. And if there was a big storm, it must have been something that we did, and we were being punished. We move into this other level. Eventually, where we head as we move into these top 2 levels is God as loving. God is loving. What a beautiful place to be. To recognize that there's this God that can love me. Then we get to this place that we call the mystical realm, where it's God as love. And I recognize that not everyone uses the word God. As a matter of fact, that's one of those words that when I say it, everyone in this room has a different idea or a different interpretation or a different felt sense of what I mean by that. And my own idea of that word has evolved over time and has changed. When I got to a place where I recognized and made that shift from God is loving to God as love, I recognized that deeper truth was the truth of who and what each of us are. That we actually are love. And when we arrive at that place, when I arrived at that place, the struggle ended because I didn't need to actually manifest anything in order to be whole and complete. I was able to recognize that was the deeper truth of who and what I am and the deeper truth of who and what you are. But here's the paradox. When I landed in that place, which by the way happens moment to moment, right? I wanted it to be, I have arrived in that place. I know I am love, I know you are love, happily ever after. For most of us, it's like, oh, maybe I forgot. Maybe I turned on CNN, I'm going to bring it in a little bit, and I heard one of the candidates speaking, and I forgot that truth. Yeah, it'll do it, right? There are things in the outer realm that may throw us off of that. Here's the great news. The great news is that each of us has the ability to recognize this deeper truth at every single moment. But guess what? It might involve me letting go of the need to be right, the need to have opinions, the need to control. I even had to let go of the idea of right and wrong. Because as soon as I say right and wrong and good and bad, I've created that world of duality. So is it possible, Dave's here, so I know we like talking about this, right? Is it possible to do that in the midst of this campaign, for example? I mean, never has there been a higher calling for love. Because I've come to understand, the Course in Miracles says everything is love or fear. And at one point I woke up, maybe metaphorically, maybe literally, and I thought, what if, rather than saying everything is love or fear, because do you hear the duality? When I say everything is love and fear, then I can maybe judge you for being fearful, or I can judge myself for being fearful. What if everything is love or a request for love? What if I were to turn on CNN, which sometimes I do, and say, what's the request for love happening in consciousness right now? Because what I see happening in the circles that I'm in is this seeming polarization that's happening. I'm staying on the political race here, on the presidential race, is a call for love. It's a call for each of us who are conscious beings to wake up and to hold that space that we are, that deeper truth. And as soon as I'm against something, what happens? It gets bigger. Now, if we collectively in this room decide that we're going to be against someone, because that's what a lot of spirituality, that's what a lot of religion does, right? Right and wrong, good and bad. Let's be against this group. When I shift that into, let me see the love or the request for love, there's a huge shift in the way I experience life. So in closing, what I want to say is that life is what we call it. And in a very deep way, we can use enthusiasm as a way to activate that deeper truth. So in every situation, to check in and really feel what's happening in my body, because it's not what we say, it's not even what we do, it's what we're being in the world. Who and what we're being in the world. So what are we calling life? What are the ideas that you have right now about your family, about your community, about conflict? See, because a lot of times it's more fun to be right until it's not. And what a blessing. Because it seems that the world or the universe gives us plenty of opportunities to wake up or shut down. As a matter of fact, every moment is a moment that we either act as love, act from love, or not. So I want us to take a moment and actually feel the felt sense in the room right in this moment. Because it is true that this is beyond words. As a matter of fact, maybe nothing that I said even needed to be said today. Or maybe nothing that I said made any sense to you. Or maybe it didn't make any sense to me. Because there's this reality that's beyond words, and that's that felt sense of a deeper reality. And from this place, as we live in this place, nothing in the outer realm needs to change in order for us to be absolutely connected with that truth. So as always, it's an honor to be here. So grateful to be in the presence of such beautiful beings. Every time I walk into this particular space, I can feel that vibration. It's so incredibly palpable. So thank you for being who and what you are in this world, because that is what makes a difference. That ripple effect as consciousness goes out. We may not know the lives that we affect by simply being in this room and being committed to this evolution of consciousness. Because when I do my own clearing and my own cultivating that relationship with that deeper self, it literally has a ripple effect in the world. So thank you so much, everyone, for allowing me to be here.